video is for my students in my fall 2023 class, Business Communication, my Business and Professional Speaking class. And I've gotten a couple of different questions from students, and so I thought I would make a Zoom video. A couple of things to think about. The reason why you are making a full sentence outline is whenever you give a speech, you do not want to read a bunch of paragraphs. If you have a piece of paper with a bunch of paragraphs, your brain is going to want to default to read the paragraphs. And if you're scanning the audience and you notice someone is really jamming out on something you say, you may want to go off the cuff a little bit and extrapolate or make eye contact or pause or slow down or quicken your pace. You can't do that when you are using paragraphs. A full sentence outline is different than a paper with paragraphs, and it is also different than a keyword outline, which is a topic outline, just a couple of words. So you have a Roman numeral red, you would just have the word red, versus a full sentence. The first main point I'd like to talk about in today's speech is the color red. The reason why you want a full sentence outline is you may have a brain freeze. You may get nervous, you may get distracted, and also it allows you to be strategic with your word choice. I've given thousands of speeches, and I have learned when I make an outline, if I rehearse the outline, oftentimes I will change the organizational pattern a little bit, maybe tweak the subpoints, maybe change the verbiage in the main points, maybe even shorten my quotes. The outline is your speech. Think of it this way. If you were running a nonprofit company or a think tank or a political campaign and a donor called you and wanted to donate $1 million to your organization, but you had an important speech to deliver, you could literally hand off that outline to your number two in charge, and they can walk in, look at the outline, scan the audience, and go, versus a bunch of paragraphs. And all of you know that. You've outlined book chapters or you've worked on a paper, and it's much more visual for the speaker. So once again, your outline is your speech. When you're working on your outline, you should fashion your main points. This is an extemporaneous speech. It's different than a manuscript speech, which is word for word. You may change a word just in midstream. I'm not going to count off if you come up with a different word, but in the same sense, it will be abundantly clear in this class who has rehearsed their speech and who just threw it together the night before. That will be abundantly clear. Now, a couple of other things to think about. You are going to want to have 3 sources in your speech. And in those sources, you're going to have 5 things you say for each source: the author's name, the qualification of that author, the publication where that appears, what the publication does, and the date. The reason why you want the date is if you're talking about a current event, let's say you're talking about COVID and you're citing evidence from 3 years ago, that's not credible because things have changed in 3 years. Now, if you're giving a speech on coin collecting, which one year I did get a speech on coin collecting, and the student came in and gave each person a couple of collectible coins. It was kind of cool. That's not going to change much. Now, maybe the value of gold may change depending upon the economy, but by and by, it's going to be, there's not much that's going to change, right? Or I don't know, think about something else. The theory of like ham radio. You guys know I'm into ham radio. There's not much going to be changing about the theory of HF wavelengths and how to calculate a wavelength to create a dipole antenna, or what is a dipole antenna. The definition of that's not going to change. So recency is very important. The reason why you want to give us the author's name and the qualifications is it enhances your credibility as a speaker. You're borrowing the credibility. Now there are some resources on your, and let me just go ahead and flip over now and show you. Let's go through the prompt, okay? So I'm going to screen share and I'm going to jump on to the prompt. And I really enjoyed class the other day because we generated some of this together. The deadline for your outline is not tomorrow in class. It is on September 5th, which is next week. And remember, I've had classes of dual credit students who have generated these things over a weekend or the next day. So this is a completely viable ask on my part. And I promise you, the longer you wait to do this, the more stress it's going to cause. These things are something that you should be working on. So, and your workflow may vary depending upon your brain and learning style. Some people will get a piece of paper and start scratching out ideas from a spiral notebook or a scrap of paper. Other people will start typing up in an outline. Some people, am I in the right? Yes, I am. I'm in the right account. So let's take a look at this. Your business presentation could be an opt-in or an opt-out for a product or a call to action. You want your audience to stop doing something or to start doing something. You want them to not adopt a product and buy a product or to adopt a product. Or it could be a sales pitch for a product, a service that you provide, or perhaps a new venture. The new venture could be directly to a customer or business to business. And this is all of y'all's ideas from class the other day. And I applaud your engagement in class. This could be something where you want to start an organization, some sort of business or a group, a startup. It could be a business proposal. You could be selling us a product and you could break it down for the audience members. And remember, you have some people who are visual learners, auditory learners, or kinesthetic learners. And those are your different learning styles as well as demographics. If you want to do a business presentation on legislation that impacts businesses, go for it. You may ask for a personal call to action, whether it's do this or don't do this, or even just raising awareness on an issue. Some of you may want to coach or consult us on as individuals, or do a consulting speech to an organization or even an institution like a governmental body or a think tank. Perhaps you want us to shift a mindset, whether it's a product or a process, a thought, an ideology. And then remember, you may be focusing on long-term customers or companies. And when one of your colleagues talked about value-driven, right? So you may have a value that you want your audience to adopt. The sole reason for them to buy that product is because of the value of that company. There's like one lens company that does lens filters and they're like, we donate blah, blah. I think it's like, I don't remember the name of it, but they're like, we plant a tree for every lens filter we sell. And I'm like, okay. And I'm one of those people that buys as much as I can. This watch, Bernhardt Watch Company, Made USA. I really try to buy Made USA as much as I can. So I would be one of your target audience individuals, and that alone would be a value-driven product. I straight up, I will buy organic over GMO and pesticide. I don't buy pesticide and GMO food, and I will spend more money for a Made USA product any day of the week, or straight up not buy the product. So there are other people like me that you can make those targets to. You can shift us to a new product. You could give us some sort of educational speech, teaching us something in a business sector. Or you could give us a company report, an industry report. These are more informative driven. And remember, there are internal audiences within a specific company as well as external audiences. You want to work to decrease semantic noise. And we had that conversation. Remember when we talked about my operational definition of a scavenger hunt versus other operational definitions of scavenger hunt being more than one item. So you want to eliminate confusion by providing what I call operational definitions. These are the defining features or the terms that I'm going to use to define this notion, and they're your terms. And that's a tactic. If I define a sidewalk, I make the operational definition, it should be 12 feet away from my house, not 3 feet. And so oftentimes, whoever's definition wins can win the argument and make the sale or make the persuasive or inform the audience. There are a myriad of examples that you can look at of these full sentence outlines, which are different than a topic outline. And please make a note of that. It's not just a couple of words, it's a full sentence. And I want to be very honest. When I had to do this assignment as a student, I was upset because I was used to writing a speech in 30 minutes for extemporaneous competitive speaking on a note card, one note card. I don't speak from note cards, multiple note cards, but one note card. And I would memorize the quotes, walk in and give a 5 to 7 minute speech. I was very upset when my teacher made me do a full sentence outline. But as someone who has given thousands of speeches in the political arena and given interviews to the news media, if I have a full sentence outline in my head or written down, those are my sound bites. They're exactly what I want to say. Because you think about it, and I've watched people when I've done TV interviews, and I'm the one who walks up to the reporter in a flood, and I'm like, hey, do you need an interview? And she's like, yeah. And so I'm like immediately starting to think about what I'm going to say. And I've seen her talk to other people and they get all giddy because they're going to be on TV. And oh, my ex who treated me so bad, they're going to see me on TV, right? They're like thinking of all the people who are going to see them on TV, and they get carried away because they don't choose their words wisely. And y'all have seen people who do say stupid stuff on TV, and that's the purpose of your full sentence outline. Please make corrections when we have our workshop. Now, if you come to class tomorrow with an idea or some stuff written on a piece of paper, or maybe you're a researcher, you really should begin your research immediately. Start maybe writing on. First thing you should probably do is make. Well, it depends. It depends upon your brain thinking style. Sometimes I immediately start doing research because I want the operational definitions. I want to even know if this is a reasonable speech to give, right? Is there statistical data or maybe a compelling story that I can use? Other times I know the topic inside and out and I start writing out the speeches. A lot of my speeches come from open records requests. So I've already looked at the open records, and so I'm writing the speech and then I go back and pull my research. So whatever your workflow is, if you come in tomorrow with your research and you've read it and highlighted it, whether it's physical copies or digitally, or maybe you've done your outline, great. I'm going to know how much work you put into it. Okay, so sometimes students kind of try to act like, yeah, and I'm like, you've got a couple of ideas in your introduction, and I've already clearly stated the introduction should be written last. Now, some of you have generated some wonderful attention getters. And so I don't want to be dismissive of that. When you're working on a speech and you come up with an attention getter, you go, girl, right? Or you go, brother, good for you. And write it down. I'm not saying block out that idea, that moment of brilliance. And you should be writing as you go. I tend to use my cell phone and just turn it on and talk into it because these ideas come to me. And I give lots of speeches. And if you're an artist, maybe you can resonate with this example. But sometimes my speeches just come at me like an avalanche of emotions, intellectual ideas, thought patterns, statistical data, a story, or people call me up upset about something with the city of San Marcos, and I process that and it's overwhelming, and then I just stop, take a breath. And those of you who are painters know that, or musicians, you immediately get an idea for a hook or a riff, or some words come to you if you're a poet. Then you just, start immediately documenting that. So in these conferences, if you're in a team building situation, there are other individuals who are your colleagues in there, start making those corrections I give to a colleague, or also give ideas. Now there's a link here to some ways that you can do a brain dump. And as you're researching and drafting and rehearsing your speech, keep in mind you want to adapt to your audience. If you create a survey and send it out on Blackboard, I will award extra credit. There are different organizational patterns. Some lend themselves more to sales speeches versus an informative presentation. Informative presentation would probably be more chronological, and I really don't have this on this prompt. I really kind of focus more on the persuasive, and we can look at that like right here. I'm like topical, problem solution, or the Monroe. Now, if you find you want to give a business presentation, you want to use a spatial or a chronological organizational pattern, I'll make a modification of my prompt for you. But as long as it's a business presentation, but the default would be this here. So the thing is, make sure you watch the Monroe Motivated Sequence lecture, because it's either you're going to nail it out of the gate or you're going to completely mess it up. I've never seen a middle ground on that organizational pattern. The workshop, your speech is due on, don't come in with just a couple ideas on a piece of paper. The speech is due on September 5th, which is Tuesday. If it is not done, it's minus 30 points. The reason is everybody needs to have their speech due on the same day. It's only fair. Otherwise, we'll have some individuals write it the night before, and usually those are the ones who it's way below par. It should be a full sentence outline with the works cited list, digital visual aid. Your visual aid, if it's a video, it should be only 30 seconds and no graphic violence. Well, I'll update that in class, and then I'll put the purple in. There's going to be a question and answer session, and then each person that you observe a speech, then you're going to provide a peer critique, and we'll get into that later. Basically, it's 5 bulleted points of super affirming comments. The reason why we don't want any graphic violence or something graphic is there may be individuals who have PTSD in the class, and we really don't want people who've been exposed to physical violence or victims of violence to have to view that imagery. Some people, I have the threshold of like, I don't know, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old to graphic violence. So that includes me as well. I've never seen a horror movie, don't watch violent movies. And so I just don't want to look at that stuff. All this stuff, the speaker order, we're going to have a sign up sheet on whatever day you sign up with. It's not literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're number 4, you're going to be speaker number 4. We kind of let people, the flow of the class, if someone gives a speech on gardening and then someone else has a speech on drinking water and someone else has a speech on gluten-free diet and someone has one on race cars, if you're the gluten-free diet, you may want to follow the person that is going to talk about water, right? It just gives nice flow to the speech. If you dress up, it's plus 3 points. So if you dress up in whatever your sports team is, and you're selling season tickets to a particular sports team, and you dress up in that kind of, gear, whatever the logos, that would also qualify for extra credit. The speech is 5 to 7 minutes, and you'll know it's 5 to 7 minutes because you will have practiced. And here are the point value deductions. It's minus 5 points for every 30 seconds over time or under time. Now, if you're a quick talker and you hit 4:45 and you're a quick speaker, I'm not going to count off. I mean, so please keep that in mind too. I'm reasonable, but just don't speak for 3 minutes. Obviously, you should. The speaking notes, if you want to put your stuff, your full sentence outline that you turn into me via PDF before class. So before class, that outline should be in my inbox in PDF format. That's the rule, okay? It's only fair to do that. If you want to transfer it for yourself to note cards or use your phone or an iPad and have a different device to speak from, that's totally your call. I always say the speech begins the moment you stand up. When I used to give speeches physically up at City Hall versus Zoom, the moment I log into Zoom or the moment my feet hit the pavement in the parking lot, I was in character. And it makes a difference. You're literally getting into character. Even if you're a seasoned speaker like me, you're ready to go. You're focused, you're poised. You have your speaking notes on you. One time I forgot them out in the car and I had to run out and get them, because I always had speaking notes and I always spoke from a physical piece of paper, and I tried using an iPad, and I tried using sometimes I would do it on my cell phone in real time if I was doing a public hearing, but now I'm just all on Zoom, and it's great for me to do it that way. So you can kind of read through this. The visual aid is required. If you do, and it should be 30 seconds in length of video, with no graphic violence. If you do a PowerPoint, remember the rule of 6, and all of this is in your reading materials in the textbook. No more than 6 lines of information, and each line of information should be no more than 6 words. Why do you think that's the case? That's right, because people will start reading your visual aid and not focusing on you as the speaker. You could have a simple image or a word cloud or a piece of data or a bar graph or a photo of, here's the child, who made all A's because they went to this reading program, and something kind of upbeat. So, here, I had it right here, so I don't have to make the correct, and it's in yellow, so we know it's important. Please do not, if you have something that you think we need a trigger warning, come to office hours. The students are always the best ones at coming up with the trigger warning. So I want your voice to be valued in my class, but we also don't want to upset our colleagues in the class. And then if you're showing me a photo of a coin, I don't need it to pre-approve your visual aid, and I don't need you to send it to me. But if it's something that you think and I just told you, I've got like the consciousness of a 7-year-old when it comes to graphic violence, you may want to show it to me. And usually what I'll do is I'll pull three men, 3 women, and I'll let them talk. And then sometimes I let them override my decision. So I just, different ages, different backgrounds, and have you guys, tell me, do you think this is going to be okay? And if it's maybe would be a trigger warning, how can we fashion that? So that way we get some other opinions, and it's not me being a dictator, okay? I want to be a dictator, maybe be mayor for a week of the city of San Marcos. Boy, the changes I could make. So the videos, I already said that here. You're going to turn in a full sentence outline, a works cited list, and complete a conference. Obviously, this doesn't apply to you, but I leave it in here so you have context. Back in the day, students would come in with a copy for me and a copy for them. That was their speech, the physical copy of the outline. And when the student came in and said, I got to run to the computer lab and go get my speech, that was a red flag to me that they had not rehearsed that speech. So if I say, hey, I need your speech, then I know it's a red flag, you're still working on it. Okay, so there's the email prior to class in yellow. So if you give me a topic outline, which is just a couple of words, or a manuscript, it's out of the gate a 65. It should be complete sentences. If you have a Roman numeral with a like let's say the color is red, subpoint A is, let's do blue, because let's see. let's do blue. So if Roman numeral 1 is blue, subpoint A is Superman blue, you would need a subpoint B. I don't know, what's aqua blue, okay? So same thing, if you have a little 1, you need a little 2. If you don't have a little 2, then make that a B. So you don't want your subpoints or main points to be lonely. And then make sure that you have all of the elements of an introduction and conclusion, which I go over in my video lectures as well as in the examples, and it's also in your textbook. 3 source citations. There's a review there. Now, the peer critiques we'll talk about in class. Here are some things for you to think about. Now, this final checklist is very helpful because it gives you a variety of ways to cite your sources. And I would take a look at that and how you would do that in your speech. Do not use parenthetical citations. Once again, do not use parenthetical citations and say, oh, professor, the sources are at the bottom in my works cited list. And then I'm going to say, and the other people who are present in the office hours, or they're all going to be going along with me like they've memorized the song, where I say, but your audience can't see the works cited list. So when I quote the EPA that putting a power plant next to a neighborhood causes a statistically significant number of cancer in children, which I've done on live TV, and commissioners have voted against a multi-million-dollar development. If I say that and don't say according to the EPA and the date and the person who wrote the report, it's just LMC making a claim, right? See, there's a difference there. Now I'm citing, not that I agree with everything the EPA does, because they do some stupid things, quite frankly. But in that instance, I was using the EPA. There are your chapters on the textbook. Here is another lecture, an old lecture, and I'll drop this one in there. Here are your playlists. There's brain dumps and a topic. There's a topic generator form. Monroe Motivated. Here are some examples of business presentations and some PowerPoints, and then a YouTube of some other speeches. I hope that I've answered some of your questions, and thank you for watching my video. And by the way, if you've gotten through the very end of this video, I'm going to extend the deadline of your full sentence outline to Thursday. Do not say anything in class. And if you guys have a group me, do not say anything on group me. You should not have a group me. Do not tell anybody. Well, maybe I'll announce it at the end of class, but if you've watched the end of this video, the full sentence outline will be due on the Thursday after September 5th. Now, that doesn't mean now you're going to blow this off and you're going to work on it on Wednesday night, because now you're defeating the purpose. The reason why I'm extending the deadline is I don't like my students to be under stress. I don't like to be under stress. And if you're like me, you've probably done a bunch of work on your speech already, and you maybe need a little brain break. And I would rather the ones who are working on this to have a little brain break and have a breather, but don't blow this off, okay? All right, thank you for watching my video. Shh, don't tell them. You gotta watch the end of the video to get the deadline. Y'all have a great rest of your week.